I was thinking last week about hitchhiking. How the fact that I never pick up hitchhikers anymore. You know, in the old day, I always did, but now with, you know, the state and county nut houses are closed, and, you know, the general condition of American mental health and all the pervs and killers out there, it's easy to justify not doing that anymore. But the fact is, during the 60s and 70s, I hitchhiked thousands of miles, most of it up and down the West Coast. And the way I looked, unwashed, 6'6", 250, always on something, I was always surprised I didn't get run over. Instead, there'd always be some kind soul who picked me up. And I always thought part of it was that, you know, the only thing I traveled with was that portable typewriter. So if I was driving along and I saw some giant beside the road and his only luggage was a portable typewriter, you know, I'd figure, well, there's a story there. There must be something there. But, you know, the more I thought about it, the more guilty I felt about not picking up hitchhikers anymore, and I hate guilt. So I made a promise that the next time I saw a hitchhiker, I'd pick him up. So of course, the next day, I'm on my way. I'm going west to Sequim. I get out to Highway 101, and there's a guy hitchhiking. So I pull over, threw all the books and magazines off.
Was that 2 weeks ago?
Last week. And I throw all the stuff off the passenger seat. And this guy gets in, he's kind of hard looking, probably about 35, regular sized. And he sticks out his hand and said, you know, hi, I'm Antonio. And I said, you know, I'm Park, where are you going? And he said, well, I want to go to the Walmart in Sequim, but I need to go downtown first. So I was going to the Indian Pot Store, which is on the way, but I figured I could go there and then take him to Sequim. You know, I'm 78 years old. My time is meaningless. So I told him that, and I was smoking a joint of Mint Kush. So I passed it to him, and, you know, pretty soon, you know, we were smoking that, and that greased the skids. And we were telling stories, and every story I told, he talked with one of his own. But his were all about being chased by cops, sheriffs, child protection services, patrol officers, ex-wives, landlords. And he told me that he lived in Quilcene, what they call a quillbilly. You know, he had a cabin sort of hidden out in the woods, and he had two dogs named Newman and Kramer, of course. So I said, do you work? And he goes, do I look like a sucker? I said, well, and he said, what I did is I have a 7-year-old daughter that I get every other weekend. And starting when she is 4, I taught her to play the ukulele and sing. So when she comes to visit on weekends, we go into town, and I put her out in the corner, and she sings, and I collect the money. And I said, is that where child services got involved? He goes, how'd you know? And then we're driving along, and there's a big billboard for Dan somebody's running for something, commissioner. And he goes, see that smiley-faced asshole? And I said, yeah, you know, I think I voted for that guy. And he says, don't. He sicked his dogs on me 3 different times. So now, adding to the chase are the commissioner and dogs, you know. So the pot store comes up. I pull into the parking lot. And I said, look, I'm going in for some edibles. Do you want to come in with me? And Antonio goes, nah, I better not. And I said, why? And he said, well, I was here for the grand opening that they had, and I helped myself to the free samples. And I said, well, so what? And he said, well, turns out they weren't free or samples, and those Indians chased me. So now, Indians are part of the posse. So I go inside, I use the old man's discount, I get the 4 boxes of edibles I like. I came out to the car, I put 3 in the trunk, and I gave 1 box to Antonio. I said, look, buddy, you need this way more than I do. And so we drive another 10 minutes, we take that second Sequim exit, and we go down a ways where traffic allows, and I pull over. And I said, well, Antonio, you know, you better get out here. So he got out and the window was open. He leaned in and he said, Park, I really appreciate the ride and the dope. You did me a real solid. I said, hey, brother, you're a character. You're my tribe. I haven't laughed that hard in a year. And he said, he stuck his fist in. He said, here's to living on the edge, bro. And I swear to God, we bumped fists, and I see this reflection of red light, and I hear the whoop of a siren. And across the street, a cop car is pulled over, and the two officers jump out, and the guy who was driving goes, DeMarco, we've been looking all over for you. He's around, takes off sprinting through this real estate parking lot with the cops after him. And I did what I always did at times like that. I said, thanks, God. This is all I've ever asked of life.